Jake Morrison stood at the viewing port and stared at the massive space station ahead. His hands were sweaty inside his gloves. This was it. After 6 months of training and testing, he was finally here. The Galactic Academy for Interspecies Relations looked like a small moon floating in the darkness of space. Hundreds of ships moved around it like insects around a light. The transport shuttle began its final approach. Jake could see other passengers around him. Most of them were aliens. Tall ones, short ones, ones with scales, ones with fur. They all avoided looking at him. Jake was used to it by now. Humans made everyone nervous. The pilot announced docking in 5 minutes. Jake checked his uniform one more time. Everything had to be perfect. Earth had waited 30 years for this chance. 30 years of proving they were not savages. 30 years of showing the galaxy that humans could be trusted. Now 12 humans were chosen for the first exchange program. Jake was one of them. The shuttle docked with a soft thud. The airlock door opened with a hiss. Jake grabbed his bag and followed the other passengers into the station. The corridor was huge. The ceiling was at least 50 feet high. Alien languages filled the air. His translator device worked hard to keep up with all the different voices. A tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms approached him. The alien wore an official uniform with many badges. "Lieutenant Jake Morrison, human delegation?" the alien asked. His translator made the words sound flat and emotionless. "Yes, sir," Jake replied. He stood straight and kept his hands at his sides. "Follow me. Your quarters are in Section 7. Orientation begins tomorrow at 0800 hours. The alien turned and walked away quickly. Jake hurried to keep up. They walked through corridor after corridor. Jake saw dozens of different species. Some walked on 2 legs like him. Others had 4 legs or 6. One group floated in the air using some kind of technology. All of them stopped to stare at Jake as he passed. Their faces showed fear, curiosity, or distrust. The alien guide stopped at a door. "Your room. Food hall is 3 doors down. Medical bay is on level 2. Do not enter restricted areas. The Crevathi nursery wing is completely off limits. Is this understood?" "Yes, sir." "What are the Crevathi?" Jake asked. The alien's expression changed slightly. "Warrior race. Feline species. They do not trust humans. Their young are kept separate from other species. Stay away from their areas." The alien handed Jake a data pad. "This contains all station rules and your schedule. Welcome to the academy." Then he left. Jake entered his quarters. The room was small but clean. A bed, a desk, a bathroom. Everything designed for human size and needs. He put down his bag and sat on the bed. His hands were still shaking slightly. This was real. He was really here. That night Jake could not sleep. He kept thinking about home. About his sister Karen and her son Danny. The kid was only 6 years old. Danny had cried when Jake left for the academy. "When are you coming back, Uncle Jake?" the boy had asked. Jake had promised to return with stories about aliens and space stations and adventures. The next morning, Jake found the food hall. It was enormous. Hundreds of aliens sat at different tables. The room was divided into sections based on species biology. One section for beings who breathed oxygen. Another for methane breathers behind special barriers. A third section for those who absorb nutrients through their skin. Jake got his food from the human section. Basic protein bars and synthetic fruit. Nothing fancy. He looked around for other humans but saw none. He sat at an empty table in the corner. 3 alien students approached. They looked like walking plants with vine-like arms and leaves growing from their heads. "You are human?" one asked. "Yes, my name is Jake. We have heard stories about your kind. They say humans are very violent. They say you fight wars constantly. Is this true?" Jake put down his food. This was going to be a common question. Humans have fought wars, yes, but we are trying to be better. That is why I am here. To learn about other species. To build peace. The plant-like aliens looked at each other. They seemed to be communicating in a way Jake could not hear. Finally they nodded. "This is good. We hope you succeed." Then they walked away. The first week was difficult. Jake attended classes about galactic law, interspecies communication, and cultural sensitivity. In every class, he was the only human. Other students kept their distance. Teachers watched him carefully. One wrong move could end the entire human exchange program. On the fifth day, Jake met the Kravethi for the first time. He was walking to class when a group of them came around a corner. They were short, maybe 4 feet tall, covered in thick fur. They looked like cats that walked on 2 legs, but their eyes were intelligent and sharp. They wore military uniforms covered in medals. The lead Kravethi stopped when she saw Jake. Her fur was gray with darker stripes. One of her eyes was clouded white, probably from an old injury. She stared at Jake for a long moment. The other Kravethi behind her put their hands on their weapons. "Human," she said. Her voice was cold. "I am Instructor Vexrala. You will attend my tactical training class next week? I do not like humans. I do not trust humans. But the council has ordered me to teach you. So I will teach you. Do not give me a reason to remove you from my class." "Yes, ma'am," Jake replied. He kept his voice respectful. "I will work hard and follow all rules." Vexrala's ears flattened against her head. 20 years ago, MY Fleet encountered human ships at the border dispute near Sector 9. Your pilots flew like they did not care about dying. They threw themselves at our defenses with no fear. We won that battle, but we lost many ships. Many warriors died. I remember this. I remember what humans are capable of. She stepped closer. Even though she was much shorter than Jake, her presence was commanding. "You are dangerous, human. Your whole species is dangerous. You have the weapons of advanced beings, but the emotions of primitives. This combination is terrifying. Remember that others are watching you? Always watching." Then she walked past him, her team following close behind. Jake stood still until they were gone. His heart was pounding. That was the Kravethi opinion of humans. Warriors who saw them as threats, but Jake had a mission. He was here to change minds, to show that humans could be more than their reputation. He continued walking to his class, more determined than ever. The days turned into weeks. Jake learned about dozens of alien cultures. He made a few cautious friendships with some of the braver students. 2 other humans, Lisa Chun and Marcus Webb, arrived in his section. It felt good to have familiar faces around, but Jake kept thinking about the Kravethi, about their nursery wing that was off limits, about their fear and distrust of humans, about the way Instructor Vexrala looked at him like he was a bomb waiting to explode. He did not know it then, but soon everything would change. Soon a small Kravethi cub would make a choice that would surprise everyone, and that choice would begin to heal the divide between 2 species that seemed too different to ever understand each other. 3 weeks had passed since Jake arrived at the academy. He was starting to find his rhythm. Classes in the morning, study sessions in the afternoon, and physical training in the evening. The other students still watched him carefully, but at least they no longer moved away when he entered a room. Today, Jake had environmental systems training. The class was learning how the station maintained air, water, and temperature for hundreds of different species. It was interesting but technical. After 90 minutes, the instructor called for a 15-minute break. Jake stepped out of the classroom and stretched his legs. The corridor was quiet. Most students stayed in the classroom or went to the nearest rest area. But Jake noticed a side passage he had not explored before. His curiosity got the better of him. He walked down the passage and found an observation deck. The deck was empty. Large windows looked down into a room below. Jake approached the window and looked through. His breath caught in his throat. Below was the Kravethi nursery. A dozen small cubs played in the space below. They were tiny, maybe half the size of the adults Jake had seen. Their fur was fluffier, softer looking. They tumbled over each other like puppies, wrestling and chasing. 2 adult Kravethi watched from the corners of the room. The cubs played with wooden practice weapons, mimicking fighting moves they had probably seen their parents do. Jake smiled without thinking. They reminded him so much of Danny. His nephew loved to play fight too, swinging plastic swords and making sound effects. The memory hit Jake hard. He missed home. He missed his family. He pressed his hand against the cold window glass and just watched the cubs play. One of the cubs stopped playing. It was smaller than the others, with bright copper-colored fur. The cub looked up suddenly, directly at Jake, its large golden eyes fixed on him. The cub tilted its head to one side, ears swiveling forward. It seemed curious. Jake did not move. He did not want to scare it. The cub made a small sound and pointed up at Jake. The other cubs ignored it, too busy playing. But the copper-furred cub kept staring. Then something unexpected happened. The cub ran toward a door on the far side of the nursery room. The adult attendants called out, their voices sharp. But the cub was already through the door. Jake heard one of the attendants speaking urgently into a communication device. Jake turned away from the window. He should leave. This was a restricted area. He should not be here at all. But before he could take a step, the door behind him opened with a hiss. The copper-furred cub emerged into the observation deck corridor. It stood there for a moment, sniffing the air. Then it looked at Jake and made a soft chirping sound. A small translator device on the cub's collar produced words in standard galactic language. "You are big. Are you human?" Jake froze. He knew he should not interact with the cub. Rules said he should leave immediately. But the cub was right in front of him, looking up with those big golden eyes. Running away felt wrong. Slowly, carefully, Jake lowered himself down to one knee. He wanted to seem less threatening. "Yes, I am human. My name is Jake. What is your name?" The cub took a small step closer. Its whiskers twitched. "I am Kriya." "You look sad." "Through the glass." "Why are you sad?" The directness of the question surprised Jake. Children were honest like that. They did not hide their thoughts behind polite words. "I miss someone," Jake said quietly. "Someone small like you?" "He lives on my home planet, very far away from here." Kriya's ears moved forward. The cub seemed to be thinking. Then it walked right up to Jake and placed one small paw on Jake's knee. "Home is far?" "Very far. Many light years away." "That is very sad," Kriya said. The cub's voice was sincere. "When my mama is away on her ship, I feel sad too. Papa says missing someone means you love them. Do you love the small one?" "Yes, very much. His name is Danny. He is my nephew." "Nephew," Kriya repeated, testing the word. "That is a family word." "Family is important?" "Very important," Jake agreed. The moment shattered like glass. The door burst open again, and Instructor Vexrala came through fast. Her hand was on her weapon. Her posture screamed danger. Behind her, the two nursery attendants looked terrified. "Step away from the cub, human." Vexrala's voice was ice cold. Every word was a threat. Jake immediately raised his hands, palms out. He started to stand up slowly, carefully. He did not want to make any sudden movements. But Kriya made a small distressed sound. And then the cub did something that shocked everyone. Kriya jumped. The cub used Jake's bent leg as a springboard and scrambled up his side. In seconds, the small Cravathi was perched on Jake's shoulder. Tiny claws gripped Jake's uniform jacket but did not dig into his skin. Kriya pressed close to Jake's neck and continued making small chirping sounds. Time seemed to stop. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Jake stood perfectly still. He barely dared to breathe. His heart was hammering so hard he thought everyone could hear it. Vexrala's expression was pure shock. Her hand tightened on her weapon. The nursery attendants moved to flank Jake, ready to grab the cub if they got a chance. "Kriya, come down right now." Vexrala's voice carried absolute authority. It was the kind of voice that made soldiers obey without question. "This is not acceptable behavior. Come down immediately." But Kriya did not move. Instead, the cub nuzzled against Jake's jaw and made a soft sound. The translator produced words. "He is warm. He is safe. He feels like Papa." Jake closed his eyes for a second. This was bad. This was very bad. He was a human with a Cravathi cub on his shoulder. The Cravathi were protective of their young. One wrong move, and he could cause an interspecies incident. Everything humans had worked for could be destroyed right here, right now. Instructor Vex Rala, Jake said very quietly, very carefully. I am not moving. I promise you I am not moving. I do not want to scare Kriya. I do not want to make this situation worse. Please tell me what you need me to do. I will do exactly what you say. Vexrala's ears were flat against her skull. This was a sign of extreme agitation in Cravathi body language. Her scarred face showed shock, anger, and something else. Confusion, maybe. Her hand stayed on her weapon, but she had not drawn it yet. Other people were arriving now. The commotion had drawn attention. Students looked through the doorway. Jake could hear voices, questions being asked in multiple languages. He saw Lisa Shun push through the crowd. Her face went pale when she saw the situation. The cub has chosen proximity to you, Vexrala said slowly. Each word was measured, careful. This is highly unusual. Cravathi young do not approach other species. They are taught to maintain distance. They are taught to protect themselves, always. He asked me why I look sad, Jake offered. He kept his voice soft. I told him I missed my nephew. My sister's son? Back on Earth. Something flickered across Vexrala's scarred face. Just for a moment, her expression softened slightly. Her hand loosened a bit on her weapon. You have young in your family unit? Yes, ma'am. His name is Danny. He is 6 years old. He loves dinosaurs. He loves building things with blocks. He loves running around and playing and asking questions about everything. Kriya lifted his small head at that. His golden eyes looked at Jake with interest. What are dinosaurs? Jake risked a small smile. His face was turned slightly away from Vexrala, toward the cub on his shoulder. Dinosaurs are big creatures that lived on Earth a very long time ago. Millions of years ago. They do not exist anymore, but we found their bones. Some dinosaurs were huge, bigger than this whole corridor. Some had sharp teeth and ate meat. Some had long necks and ate plants. Big. Kriya's ears perked up with excitement. Bigger than the station ships? Some were even bigger than the ships, yes. The cub made a sound of pure wonder. His tiny claws kneaded gently against Jake's jacket. I want to see dinosaurs. They are gone now, Jake explained patiently. But we have pictures. We have their bones in museums. Buildings where we keep old things so people can learn about them. Vexrala watched this exchange. Her battle-hardened instincts were clearly fighting with something else. The corridor had become crowded. More students pushed in to see what was happening. Security personnel were arriving now, moving through the crowd. Their uniforms marked them as station authority. Among them was a massive Cravathi male who wore the insignia of a high-ranking commander. His fur was dark gray with black stripes. Medals and decorations covered his chest. He moved through the crowd like a warship cutting through space. Everyone stepped aside for him. Even Instructor Vexrala straightened slightly when she saw him approach. The male stopped 3 feet away from Jake and studied the situation with sharp, tactical eyes. He looked at Jake, he looked at Kriya on Jake's shoulder. Then he spoke rapidly to Vexrala in their native Cravathi language. The words came too fast for the translators to process properly. Vexrala responded in the same language. Her tone was defensive. She gestured to Jake and Kriya several times. The debate seemed intense. Other Cravathi security personnel had formed a semicircle around Jake, blocking him from the crowd. Their hands rested on their weapons. Jake stood perfectly still. He did not understand the words being spoken, but he understood the situation. These were important people making important decisions. His life, his career, maybe the entire human exchange program hung in the balance. All because a curious cub had climbed onto his shoulder. Kriya seemed unconcerned. The little cub had settled comfortably against Jake's neck, occasionally making soft sounds of contentment. One small paw rested on Jake's collarbone. Finally, the large male Cravathi turned back to Jake. He approached until he was within arm's reach. Up close, he was even more intimidating. Built like a tank, covered in muscle and scars, but his eyes were intelligent, measuring Jake carefully. "Lieutenant Jake Morrison, human delegation," the male began. His translator rendered his voice in deep, controlled tones. "I am Commander Torvas of the Crevathi Defense Fleet. I have been informed that my son climbed onto you of his own choice. Is this correct?" Jake's eyes widened slightly. "Your son, sir?" "Kriya is my youngest cub. His mother currently serves on the Outer Rim Defense Fleet. She has been gone for 2 months. Torvas's expression was unreadable. "My son has been asking questions about the humans since your delegation arrived. I did not expect him to approach one directly. I did not expect it either, sir. I promise I did nothing to encourage him. I was simply looking through the observation window. I was watching the cubs play. It reminded me of home." "I believe you," Torvas said simply. "If you had intended harm, you would not have stayed still. You would not have called for guidance. Your behavior has been appropriate." He paused. "Kriya, why did you leave the nursery?" The cub's voice was small but clear. His translator produced the words carefully. "The human had lonely eyes, Papa, like when you watch the stars and miss Mama. I wanted to make him feel better." The simple honesty of those words struck everyone who heard them. Several of the Crevathi exchanged glances. Even Torva's stern expression softened slightly. He reached up with one large hand and gently touched his son's head. The gesture was tender despite the warrior's fierce appearance. "You have your mother's compassionate heart, little one," Torvas said quietly. Then he looked at Jake again. "Our cubs are taught from birth to trust their instincts. It is a survival trait. In battle, instinct can mean the difference between life and death. We teach our young to read threats, to sense danger, to know who can be trusted." He paused. "Kriya's instincts told him you were safe. In our culture, such intuition is sacred. We do not override it without serious cause." Instructor Vexrala stepped forward. Her posture was rigid, formal. "Commander, with all due respect, human unpredictability is well documented. Their psychological profiles show extreme emotional variance. They are capable of great violence with little warning. We cannot risk the safety of a cub based on one moment of calm behavior." "I understand your concern, Instructor," Torvas replied. His tone was respectful but firm. "You fought in the border conflicts. You saw what human pilots were willing to do. I read your reports. But tell me, when you look at this human right now, what do you see?" Vexrala looked at Jake, really looked at him. Jake met her gaze steadily. He kept his breathing calm, his posture non-threatening. Kriya chose that moment to yawn, showing tiny, sharp teeth, and then snuggled closer to Jake's neck. "I see a young male maintaining control in a stressful situation," Vexrala said slowly. "I see someone who has not attempted to remove the cub forcefully. I see someone who has deferred to our authority while allowing my student to make his own choice." "Exactly," Torvas said. "Look at how gently he holds himself. Look at his hands, open and visible. He could have panicked. He could have grabbed Kriya and tried to pull him off. Natural instinct when something climbs on you unexpectedly. But he did neither. He stood still and waited for us to arrive. He waited for guidance." The commander turned fully to Jake. "You have handled this situation with honor, Lieutenant Morrison." Jake let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. "In my culture, sir, we have a saying. It takes a village to raise a child. The whole community helps care for the young ones. I figured that principle applies across species. Kriya is your son. You make the rules. I follow them." Torvas made a sound deep in his chest. It might have been approval. Several of the other Crevathi in the corridor nodded slightly. "A wise approach," Torvas said. "Kriya, the human must return to his training. You must return to the nursery. Will you go back now?" The cub considered this seriously. His ears swiveled back and forth as he thought. Then he chirped agreement. But before climbing down, Kriya touched Jake's cheek with one small paw. The gesture was gentle, almost a caress. "You will come back?" Tell more stories about dinosaurs? And about Danny? Jake glanced at Commander Torvas, asking silent permission. The commander gave a slight nod. Yes, buddy. I can do that. I would like that very much. Promise? Kriya insisted, I promise. The cub seemed satisfied. Carefully, using Jake's uniform like a ladder, Kriya climbed down. His small claws never once pierced through the skin. Once on the ground, the cub scampered to his father. Torvas picked up his son with obvious care, holding the small body close to his chest. Kriya nuzzled into his father's fur, chittering softly. Then Commander Torvas did something unexpected. He shifted Kriya to one arm and extended his other hand to Jake. It was a human gesture, a handshake. He must have learned it specifically for interactions with the human delegation. Jake took the offered hand. The grip was incredibly strong. Jake could feel the power in those fingers, the careful control that kept them from crushing his bones. They shook once, firmly. You will join my family for evening meal 3 days from now, Torvas said. It was phrased as a statement, not quite a question, but there was invitation in his tone. Kriya will have many questions about these dinosaurs of yours. My other cubs will also want to meet you. And I find myself curious about a species that produces warriors who also know how to stand perfectly still for the sake of a child's comfort. I would be honored. Sir, Jake replied. The meal begins at 1800 hours. I will send you the location. Torvas adjusted his hold on Kriya. Instructor Vex Rala, please ensure Lieutenant Morrison faces no disciplinary action for being in this area. The fault was my son's curiosity, not human transgression. Understood, Commander, Vex Rala said. She still looked uncertain, but she would follow orders. The crowd began to disperse. Security personnel cleared the corridor, ushering students back to their classes. The 2 nursery attendants approached nervously and bowed to Commander Torvas, apologizing profusely for losing track of Kriya. Torvas dismissed their concerns with a wave of his hand. As the Crevathi group prepared to leave, Kriya looked back over his father's shoulder at Jake. The cub waved one small paw. Jake waved back, smiling despite his still racing heart. Lisa Chun appeared at Jake's side as soon as the Crevathi were gone. Marcus Webb was right behind her. Are you okay? Lisa asked urgently. We thought you were going to get arrested, or worse. I am fine, Jake said. His legs felt a bit shaky now that the adrenaline was wearing off. That was intense. Intense? Jake, you had a Crevathi cub on your shoulder. Do you have any idea how protective they are of their young? Marcus shook his head in disbelief. And Commander Torvas invited you to dinner. That is huge. News of the incident spread through the station faster than light through a jump gate. By that evening, everyone knew the story. A human and a Crevathi cub. The cub had climbed onto the human by choice. Commander Torvas had not only allowed it, but had invited the human to dinner. It was unprecedented. Jake returned to his quarters to find his communication device flooded with messages. Some were from other human delegates asking if he was okay. Some were from alien students asking questions. One was from the Academy administration requesting a formal report of the incident. Jake spent 2 hours writing down exactly what had happened, leaving out nothing. The next 2 days were strange. Jake noticed a shift in how others treated him. Some aliens still avoided him, but others approached with new curiosity. A group of insectoid students asked him about Earth animals. A delegate from an aquatic species wanted to know about human children and family structures. Even some of the more reserved species nodded to him in the corridors, but the biggest change was in Instructor Vexrala's class. Jake attended her tactical training session the morning after the incident. He arrived early and took a seat in the back, expecting the worst. When Vexrala entered, she looked directly at him. For a long moment, their eyes met. Lieutenant Morrison, she said. Her tone was neutral. Please come to the front. You will assist me with today's demonstration. Jake stood and walked to the front of the classroom. Every eye in the room followed him. Vexrala pulled up a holographic display showing a battle scenario. Human carrier ships against Crevathi defensive positions. 20 years ago at Sector 9 this engagement occurred. Vexrala began. I was there. I commanded one of the defensive wings. The humans sent wave after wave of fighters at our positions. We destroyed many of them, but they kept coming. No fear, no hesitation. It was terrifying. She looked at Jake. Tell the class, Lieutenant? Why do humans fight this way? Jake took a breath. This was a test. Because we believe some things are worth dying for, ma'am. During that engagement, there was a civilian colony behind our lines. Families, children. If your fleet had broken through, thousands of innocents would have died. So our pilots made a choice. They chose to hold the line no matter the cost. So human recklessness is actually calculated sacrifice? Vexrala asked. Sometimes, ma'am. Not always. Humans make mistakes too. But in that battle, yes. It was sacrifice. Vexrala studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. This is what the galaxy does not understand about your species. You contain contradictions. You are warriors and protectors, destroyers and nurturers. You will die for strangers, but you will also stand perfectly still for a curious cub. She turned to the class. This is the lesson today. Never assume you fully understand another species. They will always surprise you. The class continued with Vexrala analyzing both human and Crevathi tactics. She was fair in her assessment, praising both sides for their strengths and noting their weaknesses. When the session ended, she asked Jake to stay behind. I owe you an apology, Lieutenant Morrison, she said once they were alone. Her voice was gruff but sincere. I judged your entire species by your capacity for violence. I forgot that capacity and choice are different things. You have the ability to harm, but you chose gentleness. That requires more strength than I gave you credit for. No apology needed, ma'am, Jake replied. You were protecting your people? You were doing your duty. I respect that. Commander Torvas told me something yesterday, Vexrala continued. He said you could have caused an incident. You could have shouted for help, grabbed the cub, made demands. Instead, you gave control to us. You trusted us to handle our own cub. That trust meant something. Jake nodded. My sister taught me that when I first met Danny, she said never pick up someone else's kid without permission. It is about respect. Even if the kid wants you to hold them, you wait for the parent to say it is okay. Your sister sounds wise. She is. She keeps me grounded. Vexrala's ears twitched in what might have been amusement. Kriya is fortunate to have caught your attention. His mother, Commander Sharon, is one of our finest officers. She has been on patrol for 3 months now. The cub misses her greatly. Perhaps he saw something in you that reminded him of comfort, of safety. I hope I lived up to that, Jake said quietly. You did? The day of the dinner arrived. Jake prepared carefully. He wore his dress uniform, made sure every detail was perfect. Commander Torvas had sent the location that morning, along with a note saying his other 2 cubs were excited to meet the human who told dinosaur stories. The residence was in the Crevathi section of the station. Jake had never been to this area before. The corridors were designed for shorter beings, the ceilings lower. Decorative panels showed scenes of Crevathi history, battles and ceremonies and family gatherings. He passed several Crevathi families who stopped to stare at him. Some nodded politely. Others simply watched with cautious curiosity. Jake found the correct door and pressed the chime. It opened immediately. Commander Torvas stood there, no longer in his military uniform. He wore simple civilian clothes, comfortable and well-worn. Lieutenant Morrison, welcome. Please come in. The residence was warm and comfortable. Furniture sized for Crevathi, but there was a human-sized chair that had clearly been brought in for this occasion. The walls were covered with pictures and holo displays. Family photos, commendations, children's artwork. 3 cubs came running from another room. Kriya led the pack, his copper fur shining. Behind him, 2 older cubs followed. One had black fur with white patches. The other was solid gray like their father. They all skidded to a stop when they saw Jake. Papa! The human is very tall. the black and white cub said. Yes, Creven. Humans are taller than us. But that is okay. Lieutenant Morrison, these are my other sons. Creven is 8 years old. Kritash is 7. Torvas gestured to each cub in turn. Cubs, show proper respect to our guest. The older cubs immediately stood straight and gave formal Krevethy bows. Jake bowed back, trying to match their formality. Kriya had no such restraint. The little cub ran forward and hugged Jake's leg. You came. You remembered your promise. Jake knelt down and smiled at the cub. Of course I did. I always keep my promises. Did you bring pictures of dinosaurs? Kriya asked hopefully. Better. I brought a holodisplay with lots of information. Jake pulled out a small data device. But first dinner. Your father invited me to eat with your family. That comes first. Dinner was an interesting experience. The food was protein-based, similar enough to Earth food that Jake could eat it safely. Torvas had clearly researched human dietary needs. They sat around a low table, the cubs chattering excitedly. Creven wanted to know about human ships. Kritash asked about human weapons. Kriya just wanted to sit next to Jake and touch his hand repeatedly. As if making sure he was real, Torvas watched his sons with obvious affection. They have not been this excited in months, he said to Jake. Since their mother deployed, Kriya especially has been quiet. You have brought energy back to our home. They remind me of Danny, Jake said, full of questions and energy. It feels good to be around that again. After dinner, Jake activated the holodisplay. 3-dimensional images of dinosaurs appeared in the air above the table. The cubs gasped in wonder. For the next hour, Jake taught them about Earth's ancient history. He showed them Tyrannosaurus rex with its massive jaws, Brachiosaurus with its long neck, Triceratops with its horns, velociraptors hunting in packs. The cubs were enthralled. They asked hundreds of questions. How big were the teeth? Could dinosaurs fly? Did they fight each other? Jake answered every question patiently, enjoying their enthusiasm. Creven, the oldest, was particularly interested in predator strategies. The velociraptors hunted in packs, he observed. Like Krevethy warriors. Did humans learn pack tactics from studying these creatures? Actually, yes, Jake confirmed. Human scientists studied predator behavior. We learned many things from ancient Earth animals. How to coordinate attacks. How to work as a team. The dinosaurs were extinct millions of years before humans existed, but they still taught us lessons through their fossils. That is very wise, Kritash said. Learning from the past to be stronger in the future? As the evening continued, Jake realized something important was happening. The dinner with Commander Torvas's family became a regular event. Every week, Jake visited their home. Sometimes he brought new information about Earth. Sometimes he just played with the cubs. Creven loved strategy games, and Jake taught him chess. Kritash enjoyed stories about human history and battles. Kriya simply liked having Jake around, following him everywhere like a small shadow. Through these visits, Jake learned about Krevethy culture in ways no classroom could teach. He learned that family bonds were sacred, that protecting the young was the highest duty. He learned about their complex honor codes, their warrior traditions, their fierce loyalty to their pack. But he also learned they valued compassion, wisdom, and the innocent trust of children. Commander Torvas became something like a mentor to Jake. The older warrior shared stories about the Krevethy military, their philosophy of combat, their view of the galaxy. In return, Jake talked about human history, about Earth's long journey from warring tribes to unified spacefaring civilization. Your species nearly destroyed itself multiple times, Torvas observed one evening after the cubs had gone to bed. Nuclear weapons, biological warfare, environmental collapse. Yet you survived? How? Jake thought carefully before answering. We learned that our greatest enemy was ourselves. Our own fear, our own hatred. Once we realized that, we could start fixing things. It took centuries. We made many mistakes. But slowly we learned to work together instead of against each other. And now you reach for the stars. Now we reach for the stars, Jake agreed. Not to conquer, not to dominate, but to meet others, to learn, to find our place in this huge galaxy. Torvas nodded slowly. When my fleet encountered human ships at Sector 9, I thought I understood your species. Warriors without fear. Dangerous because you do not value your own lives. But I was wrong. You value life intensely. That is why you fight so fiercely to protect it, yes, sir. Exactly. The weeks turned into months. Jake's time at the academy was transforming him. He was learning not just about alien species, but about humanity's place among them. Other humans in the program reported similar experiences. Lisa Chun had befriended a group of crystalline beings who communicated through light patterns. Marcus Webb was working with methane-breathing engineers on propulsion systems. Slowly, carefully, humans were building bridges, but the bridge between humans and Cravathi felt special. Other species on the station noticed. They watched how Commander Torvas treated Jake with respect. They saw how Instructor Vexrala had shifted from distrust to cautious approval. Most importantly, they saw how the Cravathi cubs had accepted a human into their lives. One day, Instructor Vexrala asked Jake to stay after class again. The commander wants to know if you would be interested in a joint training exercise, she said. Human and Cravathi tactical teams working together on a simulated mission. It has never been done before. I would be honored, Jake replied immediately. Good, because I recommended you for the program. You have proven you can work with us. Now let us see if our warriors can work with yours. The joint exercise took place 3 weeks later. 6 humans and 6 Cravathi formed mixed teams to complete various tactical scenarios. At first, the differences in approach caused friction. Humans favored adaptable strategies and individual initiative. Cravathi preferred coordinated pack tactics and strict hierarchy. But as the day progressed, both sides began to see the value in the other's methods. Jake found himself paired with a Cravathi warrior named Sekthar. The older soldier had fought in the Sector 9 engagement and initially treated Jake with cold professionalism. But as they worked through scenarios together, something changed. You do not hesitate, Sekthar observed during a break. When a decision must be made, you make it. No second guessing. Hesitation gets people killed, Jake replied. My instructors on Earth taught me that. Trust your training, trust your team, and act. This is also what we teach. Sekthar's ears flicked forward, a sign of approval. Perhaps humans and Cravathi are not so different in this regard. At the end of the exercise, Commander Torvas addressed both groups. Today you have all demonstrated courage and skill. More importantly, you have demonstrated the ability to set aside preconceptions and work together. This is the foundation of true alliance. Human courage combined with Cravathi discipline creates something stronger than either alone. The success of the training exercise led to more collaborations. The Academy administration, seeing the positive results, began organizing similar programs between other species. The humans had proven themselves not as threats but as partners. Word spread beyond the station to the wider Galactic Council. Jake's time at the Academy was coming to an end. 6 months had passed quickly. The 12 human delegates would soon return to Earth to report on their experiences. New delegates would take their places. But the friendships formed, the bridges built, those would remain. On his final evening, Jake visited Commander Torvas' family one last time. The cubs were subdued, understanding that Jake was leaving. Even Kreven and Kritash, usually so energetic, sat quietly. Kriya climbed into Jake's lap and refused to move. Do you really have to go? The small cub asked. His voice was sad. Yes, buddy, but I will come back. I promise. And maybe one day, you and your brothers can visit Earth. You can meet my nephew Danny. You can see the dinosaur bones in our museums. You can see where humans come from. Really? Kriya's ears perked up slightly. We can visit Earth? If your father allows it, and if the council approves it, yes. I would love to show you my homeworld. Torvas spoke then, his voice formal. Lieutenant Morrison, you have given my family a great gift. You showed us that humans, despite their reputation, understand what we value most. The safety of our young, the bonds of family, the honor of trust given and returned. You could have been a threat to Kreia that first day. Instead, you were a friend. You gave me a gift too, sir, Jake replied. You let me be part of your family when I was far from my own. You trusted me with your sons. That trust means everything. Commander Torvas stood and approached. He placed both hands on Jake's shoulders in a traditional Cravathi gesture of deep respect. You will always be welcome in my home, Jake Morrison. You are pack brother now. This is not a temporary thing. This is permanent. Jake felt emotion tighten his throat. Thank you, sir. That means more than you know. Before he left, Kreia pressed something into Jake's hand. It was a small wooden carving, carefully crafted. Jake looked at it closely and smiled. It was a dinosaur, a stegosaurus, recognizable despite the simplified form. I made it in craft class, Kreia said proudly. Teacher helped a little, but mostly I did it. So you remember us? Jake knelt down and pulled the cub into a gentle hug. I could never forget you, Kreia. Any of you. This will go on my desk wherever I get stationed. I will look at it every day. The goodbyes were hard. The three cubs hugged Jake in turn. Commander Torvas gave him a formal salute that Jake returned crisply. Then Jake walked back to his quarters, the wooden dinosaur held carefully in his hand. The journey back to Earth took 2 weeks. Jake spent much of it writing reports and reflecting on everything he had learned. When the transport finally entered Earth's solar system, Jake felt a mix of emotions. Joy at coming home. Sadness at leaving the academy. Hope for the future. His sister Karen was waiting at the arrival terminal with Danny. The boy had grown in 6 months. He looked taller, older somehow. When he saw Jake, he broke away from his mother and ran full speed across the terminal. Uncle Jake, you are back. Tell me about the aliens. Did you see cool ships? Did you make friends? Jake scooped Danny up and hugged him tight. I did see cool ships. I did make friends. And I have so many stories to tell you. That night, Jake sat with Danny and showed him pictures from the academy. He told stories about the different species he had met. But he spent the most time talking about the Cravathi, about Commander Torvas and his 3 sons. They look like big cats, Danny observed, studying a picture of Kreia. They kind of do, but they are people just like us. They have families. They love their children. They laugh and play and learn. They are not so different from humans when you really get to know them. Did they like you? Yes, they liked me. And I liked them. Jake pulled out the wooden dinosaur and showed it to Danny. A cub named Kreia made this for me. He is about your age. He loved hearing about dinosaurs. He reminded me a lot of you, actually. Danny touched the carving gently. Can I meet him someday? Maybe, if things keep going well between our species, maybe one day you can. Would you like that? Yes. I want to meet the alien kids. 2 years passed. Jake was promoted and assigned to the human embassy on the Academy station. He returned to find many changes. More species had joined the exchange program. The Cravathi had opened more of their sections to other species. And most importantly, Commander Torvas had been appointed as the Cravathi liaison to the Galactic Council. Jake attended the appointment ceremony. The hall was filled with dignitaries from dozens of species. When Torvas took the stage to give his acceptance speech, he spoke about unity, understanding, and the courage to trust those who seemed different, and in the front row sat 3 young Cravathi. Kreven, now almost grown. Kritash, entering.